Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the resolution, H. Resolution 295.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
House Resolution 295, resolution expressing the sense of the House of Representatives supporting the establishment of September as Campus Fire Safety Month and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Jindal, and the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks on House Resolution 295.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of House Resolution 295, a measure to support establishment of September as Campus Fire Safety Month. So often in this chamber we consider legislation to expand access to college and strengthen our federal higher education programs. Today we have an opportunity to discuss the need to bolster safety on college campuses, specifically fire safety, and we're right to do so. Our nation's college students should be able to live on campus with the confidence that they will be safe in their dorms, apartments, or other housing. This measure will take a key step towards ensuring greater awareness of this issue. I especially want to thank my colleagues, Representatives Tubbs-Jones and Representative Weldon, for taking the lead and offering this legislation. This is not the first time this year that campus fire safety has been a priority for the House. In March, when we passed the College Access and Opportunity Act, we also endorsed an effort to ask colleges and universities to report annually on fire safety efforts. The report would include such information as a list of all student housing facilities and whether or not they were equipped with a sprinkler system or other fire safety program, as well as statistics on occurrences of fires, false alarms, information on various fire safety rules and regulations, and other measures as well. Mr. Speaker, though that measure is not advanced with our friends on the other side of the Capitol, today we have the opportunity to demonstrate our continued commitment to the safety of college students. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this resolution. And again, I thank the primary authors of this legislation. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of the time. The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, is recognized for 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will yield myself such time as I might consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.Res. 295, a bill to establish September as Campus Fire Safety Month. As students get back into the full swing of the school year, we all know that the need to be prepared for a campus fire is the last thing perhaps on their mind. Since January of 2000, the Center for Campus Fire Safety has identified 89 fire fatalities in student housing. Almost 80% of these deaths have occurred in off-campus housing, such as rented houses and apartments. Last year, a number of states across the nation issued proclamations for September, and many schools held events on campus to educate their students about fire safety. This summer, the Center for Campus Safety convened a summit conference of college administrators, fire organizations, and legislators to further the work in progress of many of the stakeholders. We hope that through education and attention to the dangers on and off campus that we can reduce the number of fires. H.Res. 295 is the first step in recognizing September as Campus Fire Safety Month on a national level, which is being done in conjunction with many states and colleges and universities across the country. Mr. Speaker, I know that Representative Bill Pascrell from New Jersey had wanted to be here to make some comments. Unfortunately, he was not able to do so, and so I'd ask unanimous consent to submit his statement for the record.
Without objection.
And I also ask, Mr. Speaker, for unanimous consent that Ms. Tubbs-Jones, the gentlewoman from Ohio and the sponsor of this legislation, be permitted to manage the remainder of our time on this side for H.Res. 295.
Without objection. Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise today. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues for support of H.Res. 295. I rise in support of this bipartisan resolution introduced to establish September as Campus Fire Safety Month. And I want to commend my colleague, my co-sponsor, Mr. Weldon, for all of the work that he has been doing in this area. Many of you recognize that Mr. Weldon has long been involved in fire safety, law enforcement, firefighter in his career. This legislation encourages administrators and municipalities across the country to provide educational programs to all students during September and throughout the school year. Additionally, the resolution calls for evaluation of the level of fire safety being provided in both on and off-campus student housing and taking the necessary steps to ensure fire safety living environments fire safe living environments throughout the fire safety education. It encourages installation of fire suppression and detection systems and the development and enforcement of applicable codes relating to fire safety. My colleague in the Senate, Mr. Mike DeWine, introduced companion legislation to this resolution in the Senate. My colleagues have already talked about 89 people having been killed in student housing since January of 2000. Almost 80% of the fire fatalities have occurred in off-campus occupancies, such as rented houses and apartments. Common factors in a number of these fires include lack of automatic sprinklers, disabled smoke alarms, careless disposal of smoking materials, and alcohol consumption. According to the Center, April and May, followed by August and September, are the two most dangerous periods of time for student housing fire fatalities. Last year, September was designated as National Campus Fire Safety Month. Currently, 27 states have issued proclamations declaring September as Campus Fire Safety. HRES 295 is supported by the Center for Campus Fire Safety, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, the Congressional Fire Services Institute, the National Fire Protection Association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the International Association of Firefighters, the National Fire Sprinkler Association, the International Code Council, Society of Fire Protection Engineers, and the International Fire Marshals. It is also supported by many of the college fraternities and sororities across this country, and they have been advocates on our behalf. For the past few Congresses, I have introduced H.R. 128, known as the College Fire and Prevention Act. This legislation would establish a demonstration incentive program within the Department of Education to promote installation of fire sprinkler systems or other fire suppression or prevention technologies in qualified student housing or dormitories and for other purposes. The Congressional Fire Institute and others have endorsed this fire prevention legislation. Fire safety and prevention is an issue that needs to be addressed across the country. Over these few years, we have seen many tragedies involving fires at colleges, places of business, entertainment venues, and places of residence. We must begin to place fire suppression measures against fires and increase support and resources for our firefighters to ensure that no more lives are lost to fires that could have been prevented. I thank all of my colleagues for supporting this resolution, and I know that students across this country, and particularly their parents, will be very happy that we have begun the process of instituting this legislation. I encourage all of my colleagues to pass this legislation so that we can increase awareness about this problem that affects us all. And I want to, besides that, thank my staff, one of them on the floor tonight, Steve Abbott, and others who have worked so very hard with me in order to get this legislation passed. And Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers, and I would yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to close by praising my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but also praising Mr. Weldon, who I know wanted to be here to speak on this. My colleague is correct. I think he is the only former fire chief to be serving in the United States Congress. He has been a vocal leader on the need for fire safety and a strong supporter of our first responders, and I know he feels very strongly about the legislation in front of us. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time, and I urge quick passage of the resolution.
Gentleman yields back, all time having been yielded. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 295? So many in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds of those present having responded in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.